I don't know if I buy this theory. So let me just get this straight. They share one line of dialogue. Legolas says, "You have my bow," and that's the only time he talks to Frodo in the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. Do I have that right?
You have that correct.
And then the second aspect of this theory, if I'm clear on this, is that at the end, when Frodo is sort of waking up. So he's recovering from his journey to Mount Doom, and all of the, fellowship that's surviving comes in, and we can see him mouth their names. But when Legolas comes in, he just like smiles at him. And so the theory
Oh,
is that
you.
based on those two pieces of evidence, that Frodo doesn't know Legolas's name. Are we buying this?
I'm not buying it. I think it's funny. It's more like a gag than it is like a theory to me. Like it's like a funny joke, and there's a great, TikTok or Instagram or however you consume media these days where they say these are all the times that they talk to each other. They play the quick "you have my boat" and then it's credits. And like that's funny. That's a good humor bit. But like obviously they spent tons of time together. They spent, the fellowship definitely didn't just spend time on screen with each other. So like, yeah, he knows his name.
Chief Justino gave us this mailbag question. In light of discovering this nugget, I have a question for the pod. What are your favorite fan theories for popular shows and movies? And of course, the first one that jumps to mind is another naming convention fan theory, and that's the waitress in Always Sunny. I mean,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
greatest mystery in our long-running favorite show of all time. Just say
Just
waitress.
say
I mean,
waitress.
it just is. And they still have not. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I
No, they haven't.
catch up on the Sunny, but they've never named the waitress.
Nope.
And it's Charlie's wife in real life, and
Mm-hmm.
she's appeared in however many episodes, probably 20-ish, 20, 30 episodes over the course
Yeah,
of
tons. I
the
mean, maybe
show.
even more
She's
than that. Definitely like the most recurring side character in the show.
That's my favorite fan theory. And just, I mean, we should discuss the theories because they debunked some of the theories. One of the popular ones was obviously when they did a high school reunion that Frank gets in stealing a name tag for Nikki Potnick.
Yeah.
And then the waitress comes in and says, somebody stole my name tag. So people put two and two together. That was a good fan theory, but I think it was debunked, was it not?
It was. It was. Glenn said the waitress' name is not Nikki Potnick. She does have a name. We've just never revealed it. He said that on Twitter sometime.
It's
So
incredible. I mean,
it is. I would love for it to be Carol,
that would
just
be
because
amazing.
of the scene with
Carol.
Carol. But no, yeah, people come up with all kinds of crazy stuff.
I mean, it's incredible. I would like for her name to be Charlie. I That's my fan theory that I just
That's
came up
good.
with now.
Charlie's a good
I
girl name.
mean, it's a good girl name. It's a good, boy name. It would be funny if, Charlie and the waitress. That's really the best part of the gag is that Charlie doesn't ever say the waitress's name. He just calls her the waitress, even though, you know, good stuff. Welcome in to It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom. I'm Austin. Find me on Twitter at RealBirdLawyer. Here with me, as always, my co-host Taylor at Taylor_Wit. What's going on, buddy?
People will never know your real name, and that fan theory will run rampant through
Oh
all
my
of It's
God.
Always Sunny in Chiefs King.
Actually can't wait to see the Discord go crazy with my name fan theories. It's good. I have to make sure that I occasionally, scrub that, put up some pictures of my office. Just got to make sure that I don't have anything with my name on it up there. So just posters of Zeppelin's, art of the Chiefs' last two Super Bowl championships. And, I got some aviation art up in there, but nothing with my name on it as revealed. We've got a great banger of a show. Somehow here we are. It's May 11th, and there's tons of NFL news, which is incredible. This is why we love covering this sport and being fans of the sport because, oh my God, RIP, pour one out for those of you who are Royals fans. They announced today that they are moving their Thursday afternoon game that happened to coincide with the Chiefs Thursday night opener. And there were, tens of Royals fans in the comments that were like, why is this happening? It's like, okay, come on. It's football season. It's football season now, baby.
The sun never sets on the NFL empire.
That's exactly right. Since we are temporarily between networks, please check out our personal sponsors, Underdog Fantasy. You've heard us plug them. Best Ball. It's still in that sweet spot before OTAs, before training camp, where If you think, Rashee Rice is going to be a star in the league, we're going to talk about him when we get to our mailbag. Go draft him on Underdog Fantasy. He's probably going around the 10th round right now, I would guess. Go snag him in the 8th round. You will have a fantasy team that will totally kick ass when Rashee Rice comes out, has an 1,100-yard season with like 8 touchdowns as a rookie.
Sure.
You're gonna dominate. Use
You know
our
what
promo code Sunny, SUNNY. Go ahead. No, I just was telling them
Underdog.
how to pay us.
Yes, please use our code Sunny, SUNNY. I used it today to prepare for my rookie draft because
nice.
I don't know about you, but mock drafting against computers is it just doesn't do it for me. They don't draft like people.
It's awful.
Do.
It's terrible. No, they don't.
And so I fired up Underdog. I still had some money sitting in it from last year when I kicked ass and made some money and dropped a little $25 on a draft and flexed my draft muscles before my actual real league draft began and felt like it helped. So if you're sitting there and you've got a big money league coming up, or you've got even just your buddy league or whatever, and you want to get your draft on before your real draft, go hit up Underdog. They're great.
Yeah. And not only that, let me just add to that. Not only is it different drafting against people, but it's also different drafting against people that also have some skin in the game.
Yes.
Like if you log on to Yahoo and you go do a Yahoo mock draft, you will have somebody in there that's drafting kickers in the first round because that's a free app.
They're trolls.
And they're trolls. And they don't have it. I've done that. I've done that before.
Same.
Listen,
Same.
we've all done it. But if you go on Underdog, not only do they not have kickers, so people can't troll you like that, but these people are paying money. So if they're going to troll you, I don't know, it could be Elon Musk. He spends money to troll people. That's pretty much all he does. But listen, it's a great app. Check it out. A little preview of next week. We are going to have Chiefs team reporter Matt McMullen on, who will be a first-time guest for our show. We're excited about that. I'm sure he's going to have all kinds of great nuggets about rookie minicamp, which just concluded, and OTAs.
And the draft that was in Kansas City.
May 22nd, of course, the draft in Kansas City. He was on the Chiefs schedule review show or release show today, so we're excited to have Matt on next week. And we got a great show tonight. We've got news. We've got the schedule release. We're going to go through the games. We knew which games were going to be played, but now we know what order they're going to be played in, and we're going to talk about each of those a little bit. We've got part 1. Last week was kind of like the prologue, I guess. This is like chapter 1 of our 2003 Chiefs retrospective, week 1, Chiefs versus Chargers. And then we have a couple of mailbag questions. So without further ado, let's get into the news. So first item of news, we got a little bit of clarity on last week's Donovan Smith deal. So when it was announced as 1 year up to $9 million. We got a few details of that contract. It is 1 year, $2.8 million, with 1.98 of that guaranteed. So it's essentially a $2 million or a $3 million contract, but it is worth up to $9 million in incentives. We don't know exactly what those are. This contract, when it came out a couple of days ago, has led some to suggest or hope that maybe he's not a presumptive starter. But Andy Reid said he was going to work at the left tackle. As the left tackle in the offseason program. He also said that Juwan Taylor is going back to the right side. So, I mean, you tell me, but it seems like that's going to be the starting offensive line week 1.
Well, I think it's the plan right now, but the plan when they signed Juwan Taylor was for Juwan Taylor to be the starting left tackle. And then they signed Donovan Smith, and now they're going to have camps, and now they're going to have workouts, and now maybe someone gets injured. Or, I mean, there's so much still to go between now and week 1. I do think that if gun to Andy Reid's head and you said predict the starting offensive line, I do think that that's what he would predict. I think that he thinks right now that that's the best plan. Now, it doesn't mean that information can't change that plan between now and opening day, but I think they want Donovan Smith on the left, they want Juwan Taylor on the right, and they want Wanye Morris and everyone else that's kind of been the younger project type of tackles. They just want them to be able to learn the game and take their practice reps and all that without immediately going in and taking live bullets week 1.
Wanye Morris is going to be an interesting one now because the Chiefs don't really have a backup left tackle. I mean, right. Juwan Taylor, and now Juwan Taylor is going back to the right, and he's not going to be working on the left. That to me is the tell that this is actually going to happen. It's not Donovan Smith is going to take first team reps at left tackle. Okay, that's fine. That could change. But who's going to take his job? I mean, if Juwan Taylor is working on the right side, that to me means he's not going to left tackle this year. Because if there was any chance he was going to win the left tackle job, he'd be working at left tackle. I think they're going to leave him there. Now, if that changes next year, obviously they have him under contract for 4 years. But it'll be really interesting to see where they put Wanya Morris when we get into OTAs and into camp. So that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. I certainly think that, best five potentially includes Donovan Smith at left tackle and Jawan Taylor at right tackle, and the three guys in the interior that we're used to, but we'll see how that plays out. Another item of news, and I put that in air quotes, Mike Florio reports, and I'm also going to put that in air quotes, that Patrick Mahomes will again be the highest paid player in the NFL before week 1, 2023. Now, I use reports, again in air quotes, loosely, because this article, I should have put that in air quotes as well.
This article contains
so-called
like
article
every word
contains not a single source or quote. It just mentions that Brett Veach said that it would happen at some point. So I did the work and I found Brett Veach's comments, and Brett Veach said this: there will be a couple more contracts that still have to get done, Burrow and Herbert. And once they do, you kind of look at everything and assess where you are and what you can do and take it from there. Now, do you read that? Do you read that to say he is going to get a raise before week 1, 2023?
No, and it's not really in anyone's best interest. It's not in the Chiefs' best interest. It's really not in Patrick Mahomes' best interest because, let's face it, the money right now is so secondary to his goals and his drive and everything about him right now that it just doesn't make sense to hamstring the team that he lives and dies for. It doesn't. And he's got plenty of money through his endorsements and all that stuff. And plus, he still has 9 years left on this deal. So there's no there's no impetus for anyone on either side to go out there and change the money on the contract, which by the way, would not change anything up front on the contract. They would just be tacking on. They'd probably tack on 2 or 3 years and $100-something million, whatever they need to do to get it up to the 55 APY or 60 APY or whatever it is that would make him the highest paid APY player in the league. But like practically that doesn't change anything about Patrick Mahomes' life. All it does is make life more difficult for the Chiefs to go win championships. So I don't buy this. I don't even think it's going to happen like for a while. I think that Patrick's going to crack up at dropping down that list and winning Super Bowls and still being the richest quarterback in the NFL, which he will be. And
he will be, he's one of the richest athletes in the world. I mean,
yeah,
let's break this down really quickly. Like, what is the point of being the highest paid player in the NFL when you're already the highest paid player in the NFL?
Yes.
When you consider off-field earnings, right? Like, what is the point of having the highest APY contract?
Well,
it's bragging. It's bragging.
If you're
right?
a competitive little, if all, it's bragging rights. Exactly right.
Sure, but if we want to break that down further, if the point of having the highest APY contract when you're already the highest paid player, and you will always be the highest paid player as long as you're playing in the NFL because of endorsements and everything that's going on off the field. What's better in terms of bragging rights? Super Bowl rings. And wins, championships, being all over TV, beating these other guys head to head. All of those things are better than having the highest APY contract. Correct. And that's why, to me, I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it.
Of course
not.
And
I'm not even necessarily saying that he doesn't want it.
You're right. Or that.
But I'm surprised. I would be surprised if at this stage of his career that this was a priority for him or the Chiefs. It's one of those things. CDOT Carrington Harrison said the other day, and I don't know if this was based on anything that he's heard, but it makes intuitive sense, even if it's not based on any sourcing. It makes a lot more intuitive sense than what Mike Florio said. I believe that the Chiefs are in constant communication about Mahomes' deal. I think both sides want to do right by each other, and something will happen at some point, which is basically what Brett Veach said, right? Yep. Like that's if it ever becomes an issue, it will immediately get worked out. Like you said, it probably will mean Patrick Mahomes for more time in Kansas City since he's 1 year into a 10-year deal. This was a silly thing, and we all got really mad about it. And listen, deservedly, because Mike Florio, it should be pointed out, hates Patrick Mahomes' contract, and I think might actually hate Patrick Mahomes personally.
Yes, and the Chiefs.
Based on his previous comments. I mean, going back to Tyreek Hill and even before that, but, of course, he
didn't Florio suggest someone should hurt him? San Francisco should hurt him? Right?
Yes, they did. That they should. I'm not saying they should do anything outside the rules, but like you might want to push the boundaries and take some shots. Rattle him a little bit. Yes, he has. So, yeah, I mean, it's a non-story until somebody with actual sources reports it, and so far that hasn't happened. So, somebody with actual sources is James Palmer, who reported that the Chiefs are scheduled to visit the White House on Monday, June 5th, to celebrate their Super Bowl 57 championship. I'm excited about this. I'm fired up about this because this is our first. I mean, this is the first time in our lifetimes the Chiefs have gotten to go to the White House. I mean, like
Right.
this is a big deal. I actually don't remember. Did the Royals go? Surely they did,
I believe they
but
did.
I don't remember. Yeah, I think they did, but I don't remember it. And this was. I mean, we didn't get this in 2020 when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. We didn't get it because COVID and just everything was terrible. So this is going to
Ugh.
be fun. It's going to be cool. I'm really fired up about it. See Patrick Mahomes in the White House, meeting the president, chowing down on probably not McDonald's.
No,
It'll be great.
probably not. There's this great shot, I Googled it, of Obama holding up a Royals jersey from the
Ah, yes.
championship
Yep,
jerseys,
that's
and it's
right.
got Obama 44 on the jersey, and the George Brett and everybody from the team
And
is
one
all
of
standing
his press
around him. And
secretaries was a big Royals fan. I
yes, and
recall
had a
as well.
mug
That's right.
that he would always face the Royals logo out during the press conferences, especially
Yep.
during the run.
Boy, those were
Yeah,
the days.
those were the days. They were magical days, but we transitioned magical days from baseball to football.
Yes, we certainly did. One more item of news. Andy Reid joined Travis and Jason Kelsey on their podcast, New Heights, this week. It obviously was a blast. Did you get a chance to listen to it yet?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, loved it.
What anything that you learned or that you took away from it? Anything you were surprised by?
I was a little surprised that despite everything, Andy was still just I don't want to say buttoned up. Like he did seem like he had a good time, but like it did not get rowdy. I think really the buttoned upness of it was the Kelsey brothers. I think they were
Sure. They yeah,
so nervous, which was
yeah.
great, that it was like a professional ass interview, especially coming from Jason. Now Travis gets his woohoos going and kind of chuckles
Sure.
and high
All right
fives.
now.
Yeah, all right now all the time. But I felt like Jason was really well prepared, asked some really engaging questions, even if they were kind of milk toast, kind of, who are
Sure.
some inspirations for you as a head coach? Like,
Yeah, right.
things that, although they are like biographically interesting about Andy Reid, they're certainly not like the types of stories that I think they could have gotten out of him if they really
Yeah,
tried to.
I agree.
Did like that they said that Travis was their number one tight end on the board and they were going to draft Travis Kelsey. I mean, he was very adamant that, they were really interested in him. And then that he knew that Veach and Nags, since they were teammates back at
That was good.
New Hampshire or whatever, that he said, I threw him some curveballs because I figured that was going on. They were teammates and they had it kind of rigged. So liked that bit too. Really could tell just the mutual bond that all three of those guys had, that both guys have with Andy Reid. Like it was special to just kind of see them sit there and soak in that lifelong friendship that they've made with each other. I mean, it was a great like moment, but it wasn't really that juicy.
No, I agree with that. That it still felt. I mean, Andy is still Andy. And there certainly were moments in the podcast where he he definitely went further on that podcast. I felt like than any other interview that I've ever
I
seen with
agree.
him. And
I
like,
agree.
he was definitely more out there, but he certainly was not like a completely different person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really appreciated what I most appreciated about the podcast. All of the things you said were great, and I mean, I really really liked that Andy was throwing in some surprises for Nagy and Beach, those little conspirators behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I really enjoyed hearing Andy talk about Travis Kelsey's maturation as a player because,
Agreed.
to be honest, when Andy started talking about what a struggle it was to coach Travis Kelsey the first 5 years of his career, I was like, oh shit, yeah, he was kind of a knucklehead
Mm-hmm.
for a good chunk of his early career. And
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing to me, like, as soon as that came up in the podcast, I was like, man, I just hadn't thought about that in 3 years.
Wow.
Like, it's
Yeah.
not that I forgot about it. I watched all of those seasons. I saw all the things he did on the field, heard about some of the things he was doing off the field that, certainly gave him a reputation around the league. Von Miller called him a fake Gronk head ass one time on Twitter.
Yep. Yep.
Like, all very well deserved, but just a pretty incredible, I'd say, tribute to both Travis and Andy, that he has
Yes.
developed into the leader that he is, and obviously the player that he's been. I mean, like Andy said, he's always been an amazing player, but I thought that was really cool as well. And it was funny, of course, too, to put it in perspective with Jason, having pretty much always been very coachable and a model teammate and a good leader and all
Yes.
that stuff. Just it got me thinking about my brothers. We both have brothers, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm the oldest in my family, so I identify with Jason in that regard. I wouldn't say that my brother is necessarily a head ass like Travis, but birth order matters, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was great. Let's talk about the schedule that came out,
Yes.
and let's predict what's going to happen game by game. So we got to get this out of the way. And I know we've both shared our takes on this throughout the day on Twitter, but week 1, Thursday Night Football, we're going to be buying our tickets probably here in the next week or so. So let us know if you're going to be out at the games. Hit us up on Twitter, and we're going to see if we can meet some of our fans out there. Can't wait to see the banner go up and the rings come out on the field. But it's against the Detroit Lions. And I just
Mm-hmm.
I like the Lions. We've talked so many times on this podcast about how we like the Lions.
Our Lions.
They're probably my favorite team in the NFC. I'm
Restore
fired
the
up.
roar.
I'm fired up about this game. I think it's going to be a cool game and a great matchup. Why did it have to be week 1? Like,
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, we don't get anything out of. There's 2 elements to this game. One is we are getting our rings and we're hoisting a banner, and that in itself has an opponent element to it. Like, who are we
Yes.
versus?
Yep.
We could have been versus the Eagles. We could have been versus the Bengals. We could have been versus the Jags. We could have been versus the Broncos or the Raiders or the Chargers or any of these teams that we are rivals, or the Bills.
The
Any of
Bills,
these
yeah.
teams that are our, or the Patriots. Like any of these teams that are
Well,
we're
we're
playing
at the
with.
Jags and at the
Right, sure.
Patriots, but
Right,
I know what you mean.
But any of these
There's
teams
so
that
much
are
juice with so many teams in the NFL.
that are part of our present or our past, that it would be really meaningful to raise a banner in front of and get a
Yes.
Super Bowl ring in front of and
Yes.
rub their faces in it. And the Lions are literally the last team on the schedule that I would want to do that to.
Yep.
Because I like the Lions and I feel bad for them. They've never won a Super Bowl. I don't think they've ever even played in a Super Bowl.
They have not.
They've been around literally since the beginning of the NFL.
Yep.
They've never played in a Super Bowl. It's just sad. It just makes me feel bad for the Lions. And the second element of it is you want to win on opening day. So if you're not going to beat the fuck out of, if you're not going to rub somebody's
Rip their
face
hearts
in
out
by getting the ring and hoisting the banner, you might as well schedule a patsy like the Bears or whoever, the Raiders, which, that would be fun too. But it's neither of those things, because Detroit is good. Like, they could win. They probably won't, but like, they could win.
They certainly could. As I was chatting with you when we figured this out, the Chiefs have everything to lose and nothing to gain from this particular matchup. So, think back to the other 2 times that our professional sports teams have won championships in our adult lives, right? The Royals in 2015, they beat the Mets in the World Series, and they knew this matchup even before the playoffs started.
And
but
this never happens.
Never ever happens. It had never happened. And going into 2016 opening day, they just happened to have had the Mets scheduled, and it was incredible. You and I were there, and to celebrate that World Series win against the team that you beat on that field was just it was chill inducing. And then, the Chiefs in 2019, on their way to those 3 unbelievable comebacks and winning the Super Bowl. In 2020, week 1 comes along and the NFL does the smart and right thing and puts one of their playoff opponents, the Houston Texans, in Arrowhead. And the Chiefs then hoist the banner in front of the team that they were down 24-0, and they kicked their ass. And it was right. It felt like that's how you should raise a banner. You should raise it in front of someone that matters, and you should want to do that. But on this home slate, obviously, any of the 3 divisional opponents would have been fun to rub it in their faces. None of them have won in a long time. And then you've got all of the big AFC rivals. You had the Bengals, who everyone thought this has got to be an AFC Championship rematch. That's Bengals Chiefs has the most juice of any matchup in the NFL right now. Like
I agree.
it's as hot as it gets, and it could have been the
Completely agree.
Bengals, it could have been the Bills, it could have been Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins. There were so many options there, but even the Bears, you even have the Mahomes angle that they passed on
Yes,
him at 2,
and you could beat
and
the
Ryan
hell out of
Poles,
and the Bears are bad
and you can
and the
beat the hell
Lions
out
are
of the
good.
Bears.
So like
Absolutely.
literally this was the last team on the home slate that I would have picked and wanted to be our opening day matchup.
So did the Chiefs win this?
Yeah, I think so, but I'm a little worried about it. I'm a little nervous
Me
about it.
too. Detroit's a
And
good team.
I'm a little bit I'm annoyed because like if we go and lose, if it had been any other team, like if the Bengals come in and beaten us,
Yeah.
okay, well you still had to sit through our
Rings,
ring
bitch.
ceremony.
Yeah,
But like if
right.
the Lions come in and beat us,
Yeah.
it's like everybody else that's watching on TV, including all the Bengals fans, are going to be like, you just lost to the Lions,
Yes.
to start off your title defense, and we didn't have to watch you get your Super Bowl rings in person.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a
Mm-hmm.
lose-lose scenario.
I agree.
I'm
I
getting
agree.
worked up about it, but we are both predicting a win. Let's go on to week 2. We are traveling to Jacksonville, and the last time the Chiefs played in Jacksonville, obviously was a memorable game for one Sammy Watkins.
It was.
He is a free agent, so we could always
All
sign him
up.
up for this game. But the Chiefs in the Andy Reid era have traveled to Jacksonville a couple times. They have absolutely whooped ass both times. This is always an interesting time to go to Jacksonville. Early season Florida games are notoriously difficult, just in terms of the conditioning. Going to South Florida, or I guess Jacksonville is West
North.
Florida, North
North.
Florida,
Really
yeah,
north.
Northwest
It's like right
Florida.
by the panhandle.
Right. So Northwest Florida. But I mean, still not a fun place to play in
No.
September.
No.
I don't know. This is an interesting one. I mean, Trevor Lawrence. I guess this game, what gives this a little bit of juice is we're gonna find out where. Obviously, the Chiefs beat the Jags 2 times last year, and the second time they played them in the playoffs, the first time was close on the scoreboard, but not really close if you watched what actually happened in the game. Playoff game was close, but of course Mahomes was hurt. So I feel like the rubber match here between these two teams is going to give us some idea of where Trevor Lawrence is going to stack up in the AFC quarterback pecking order this season. So it'll be fun in that regard. I'm looking forward to this game, and hopefully the Chiefs are 2-0. What do you think?
I actually have the Chiefs losing this game, and for a couple reasons. Number one is that I'm so tempted to pick them at 20-0. I'm so tempted. They're so damn good, and every time I see the Chiefs line up against another football team, rightfully so, as the best team in the NFL, I think, well, why the hell would I predict the Chiefs to lose this game? They're the better team. They're the better team than all of these teams on the schedule. However, a road early matchup against a ascending quarterback and a good head coach and a team that's pissed that you beat him in the playoffs, it's just not a good recipe. It's just not I just don't really like the mojo of it's one of 2 noon games, which we'll get to this, but 2 noon games on the schedule.
Which is
And
insane, by the way.
it is insane. It's
17
absolute. But
games.
when you're the face of the league, people don't want to see you at noon. They want to see you under the lights. So I've got the Chiefs dropping this one. I don't feel like the Jags are a better team, but I think that if I don't do it here, I don't have many other opportunities in the schedule to predict losses. So I'm going to do it here.
Okay. Week 3, they are playing the Chicago Bears at home. This is an easy dub, right?
Easy dub. Yeah, the Bears they're not great. I mean, they drafted 1-1, so they've got a long way to go to be competitive in this game. And
would have drafted 1-1.
They did, didn't they?
Well, they traded out of the pick, I mean, is what I'm saying.
They were in the 1-1 slot. They were the worst team in football
They
last
had
year,
the number 1 pick,
yes.
and then they traded it away.
Traded it to Carolina. Yep.
Yes. No, we're on the same page. So easy dub there. Week 4. This is the first game on the schedule that really has some prime time under the lights juice, and it is in fact in prime time on Sunday Night Football. The Chiefs are traveling to New York, or technically New Jersey, to play the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Will it finally happen this time? Is Aaron Rodgers going to be on the same field with Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you
think? They
think?
built it in early enough.
Sure,
they were sick of the 3 other times in the past when Patrick's been in the league that this could have happened, that it didn't happen because either Patrick was hurt or Aaron was hurt. Or, I mean, I think Super Bowl 54 was a great opportunity for this also. And the Packers shit the bed and the Chiefs did their part, but the Packers didn't. So I do think that it happens. I think finally we get to see Rogers v. Mahomes, the State Farm Bowl, whatever you have. And I think the Chiefs will take care of business. I think that despite the additions that the Jets made, McCole Hardman revenge game is not going to be good enough for them. They'll certainly have their hands cut out with the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are monsters on the road in general. We talk about Arrowhead all the time, but like when this team goes on the road, they're trying to rip people's hearts out every single time, and I think they get it done here under the lights.
I think they get it done here too. It'll be interesting to get the Jets early. This is still, a month in, so it's not week one, but you obviously have a new quarterback. He's 39 years old, or he's going to be 40 years old, I think, this season.
Yeah.
Didn't look amazing last year. He obviously has a better supporting cast in New York, but as we saw last year with Nathaniel Hackett, who, by the way, is now the Jets offensive coordinator, these things take time. You bring an aging star quarterback to a new team. You can't just necessarily expect him to go out and win the Super Bowl in his first year, unless, he's Tom Brady. So I have the Chiefs winning this game as well and starting 4-0 in the first quarter of the season. Technically not a quarter anymore since they added the 17th game. Very irritating. Let's go to week 5. Chiefs are traveling to Minnesota. I actually don't remember the last time the Chiefs played Minnesota off the top of my head. Do you?
Well, if with the rotating schedules, because they haven't done the matchup of like basically every 4 years we play the NFC North, and
Right.
every 8 years you play in the same building. So it would have been 8 years ago. It would have been 2015. I don't believe so. That would have been an Alex Smith game. I don't remember it.
I've got it pulled up here. So the last time the Chiefs played at the Vikings was
Had to
indeed
have
in
been
2015. It was
Yeah.
indeed 2015. It was
Nailed it.
October of 2015. It was a 16-10 loss.
Ugh,
Do you care to
Jesus.
care to take a guess who the Vikings quarterback was in that game?
I can. Was it Kirk Cousins? No, sorry. Was it I was picturing who was it?
It was Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater.
Nah,
Threw for 249 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks.
Sure.
And the Chiefs lost this game again 10-16. Alex Smith went 22 for 37 for 282 yards. Classic.
Yeah.
About a 6 YPA there with 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 2 sacks. Our leading rusher on the day was Charkandrick West, who went 9 for 33 on the ground. So, Travis Kelce was the leading receiver with 88 yards. Nobody else was over 57. The Chiefs had a turnover in this game. I just, it 3 out of 12 on third down. I completely I remember almost every game of the Andy Reid era, at least a little bit. I remember
this was during the 2-5 start.
Oh, okay.
So this was before they ripped off all those wins in a row in 2015 and made the playoffs. Yeah. But at the beginning of that run, I just remember we were dropping stupid game after stupid game, and this was one of them.
So the Chiefs are going to get their chance at revenge in Minnesota. I have them winning this game. This is a Kirk Cousins mid-afternoon game. So it's not quite prime time. This is kind of, for those of you who don't know, Kirk Cousins at noon is an unstoppable force. But Kirk Cousins at any other time of day, it gets very dicey. And Kirk Cousins under the lights at night is flat out bad. So afternoon Kirk Cousins, 3:25 start. I think the Chiefs are going to take this one.
Yeah, I agree. They're having some issues right now with Dalvin Cook, and people are thinking that they're probably going to move on from him. And yeah, Justin Jefferson's great. And they've got some fun pieces there, but I don't see Minnesota. First of all, Minnesota last year was one of the worst 11-win, 12-win teams, whatever they ended up with.
They won 13 games. They
13
won 13 with
teams.
A negative point differential.
Yeah. They were pulling
absurd.
games out of their ass, and then when they would lose, they just got annihilated. And I don't know. I don't really believe in the Vikings too much, so I think the Chiefs will also pick up the dub in Minnesota.
They were 13-4, and they got outscored by 3 points on the year, which is just preposterous. Going on to week 6, Thursday Night Football, division opponent, and it's at Arrowhead. You love to see it. Denver Broncos are coming to town, riding a 15-game losing streak to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right.
That will certainly extend to 16 games. I had the occasion this afternoon for the first time since we won the Super Bowl to listen to Denver Sports Talk Radio. I just didn't really have the need to listen in to what they're saying about us since we won the Super Bowl. And,
Sure.
I got to soak in the tears for a couple of days. And I can tell you that they were both predicting a loss in this game. Even Derek Wolfe, who of the 11 games that were known on the schedule at the time that I was listening to the radio program that employs Derek Wolfe on my way home, had predicted the Broncos to go 9-2 in the games that were revealed. This
Good
is one of the
God.
games that he picked the Broncos to lose. There's just no way the Chiefs are going to lose this game, right?
None at all. The Chiefs own the Broncos until further notice. Anyone who predicts otherwise would be a fool. The only thing I'm worried about in this game is figuring out what the hell we're going to do about our death list, because it is extensive. It's up
It's
over
literally like a
260
whole
people.
podcast at this point.
It is. So it's gonna have to be presented in a different way than just reading them off name by name. I don't quite know how. I was thinking of doing like a photo collage and tweeting it of just all the people.
Oh, that would be good.
Just
but that would take
something.
so long. Oh my God, that would take you like a
I
week
know.
to do.
Well, 260 people. Google image search them, grab the first one, throw it in there. I don't think it would take that long, but I don't know what else to do, because we have started, when we started
So
the
many people have
podcast,
died.
the
It's
first
insane.
Denver game, we started this streak and it was like 60 people. And now 3 years later, and so, like you said, so many people have died. So in either case, big dub. Chiefs extend that winning streak to 16 games. I don't see that thing stopping anytime soon.
This is a great little stretch because we're going to week 7 here, and we now play the Chargers at home. So this is where I feel like the schedule makers did give the Chiefs a little bit of a boon. I feel like it was kind of rude to stick us with the Lions in week 1 for the reasons that we've already discussed. But this is a really nice little stretch. The Chiefs get the Broncos at home, so they don't have to travel for Thursday Night Football, which is always amazing. It's a divisional matchup, and the NFL has had a weird proclivity for scheduling the Chiefs for division Thursday night road games the last several years. And this time we get it at home. Then we get the Chargers at home on a long period of rest. We get the mini bye before we play the Chargers in a key divisional matchup, and then turn around in week 8 and travel to the Broncos. Let's talk about the Chargers matchup here really quick. Obviously, it's at home. The Chiefs have a little bit of a rest advantage. This will be week 7, which, depending on which version of the Chargers you get, week 7 is never good for the Chargers, right? Like whether they start out
not many weeks are
whether they start out hot out of the gate or they end strong, there's no way that the Chargers are good in week 7, right? Like we're going to take this.
Yeah.
We're going to take the step.
That's a really good observation, that they're either going to falter in week 7 after their hot start, or they haven't gotten hot yet. And either way, that bears really well for the Chiefs. I think the Chargers, obviously there's been a lot made about the Chiefs' rivalry with other AFC teams, with the Bengals and the Bills specifically.
Right, teams that aren't even in their division.
Teams that aren't in their division. And it's kind of like the Chiefs have just left their, the division that they've dominated for so long just in the rear view. And they've just said, okay, we've got bigger fish to fry than you three idiots. And it'll be just really interesting now, after 6 games of the year going into week 7, if the Chargers have shown that they're serious. If they're trying to compete, they're going to be 6-1 or whatever. And if they're back to not having gotten hot yet and they're stupid, then they're probably going to be 3-4 or 3-3 going into this game or something like that. So I do think that the Chiefs have a proclivity for getting up for division games, as we all know, with the ridiculous record. They just find a way. It doesn't mean it's pretty. It doesn't mean it's not going to take overtime, or it's not going to take some crazy ass play in the fourth quarter that gets it done. But I just think that the Chiefs have the magic sauce in the AFC West, and it continues here against the Chargers.
Yeah, it'll probably be a close game, but I expect the Chiefs to win. And, the other thing about playing them in week 7 is going to be plenty of time for those injuries to pile up. We know the Chargers love to rack up the injuries on the injury report. So week 8, the Chiefs are going to be traveling to Denver. That will be the last week of October, which is a lovely time here in Northern Colorado, or Colorado, I should say. It's going to be, I'm sure, great weather for the game. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. The Chiefs will be riding a 16-game winning streak against the Broncos. This is a game where Derek Wolfe and his intrepid co-host on the afternoon show predicted the Broncos to bust the streak.
Of course they did.
It's Sean Payton's year. They're fired up about this guy. I guess they, overlooked, and they don't care about the fact that he was ripping a bong, a couple weeks ago, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But like, take yourself seriously. You're an NFL head coach, right? Like, you don't need to be ripping a bong at a
On
frat house
camera.
or whatever you're doing on camera, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
That's absurd. That's preposterous. He was on the beach in Cancun 6 weeks ago, looking fat as shit, and I don't want to body shame either. But again, like, this is your head coach now, and I feel like there's a very good chance that this just goes terribly wrong for the Broncos. And I don't know if it's going to be Sean Payton's fault or if it's going to be Russell Wilson's fault or if it's going to be a combination of the two. But I kind of feel like the streak is going to get to 17 games.
A little fatter. Yeah. What's really fun about the Denver situation from the Chiefs' perspective is how desperate and how much they've put into this working. Like, they are, if this doesn't work, that's as rock bottom of a franchise as you can get.
It's going to be disgusting.
They traded a first for a head coach, which is never a smart idea. They obviously, once they switch the coach, now you evaluate Russell Wilson with both Hackett and Peyton. And if Russell Wilson is the player that you and I think he is, which is cooked and washed and old ass Russ that can't hit the wide open receivers, can't play. He can't play anymore. And if that's the case, I mean, by the time we could be facing them in week 6 and week 8, like, think about if the Broncos start 2-4. Like, I mean, it's going to be the
Russ might be
burned to the ground.
Russell Wilson might not be their quarterback.
And that might be good news for the Broncos.
Sure,
if they've figured that out.
I mean, that could be.
Sure. So I do think that this game has the potential, especially given that I think that the Chiefs are going to take care of business in week 6. I just think that it could be this just shitstorm of pressure and of losing and of all that stuff. And I mean, we might see a really, really bad shaped Denver team in week 8. So definitely got the dub there.
It's going to be Patrick Mahomes versus Jarrett Stidham, probably in week 8.
Sure.
Which, I mean,
if the Broncos are lucky,
Jarrett Stidham can cook a little bit. He cooked the 49ers last year, which is more than Russ can say. So week 9, this was another one that just it really felt like a slight from the league.
Yes.
It really felt like it felt like they were angry at us for some reason. Maybe the rumors that we torpedoed playing the Bears in Germany because for some reason we'd want to play the Bears at home. Doesn't really make any sense to me, but that's the rumor. Week 9, the Chiefs are traveling to Deutschland. They will be playing in Frankfurt, Germany against the Miami Dolphins, and Tyreek Hill will not get his Arrowhead reunion. What a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. I like Tyreek, I'm one of those people that I wanted him to come to Arrowhead and I wanted people to cheer him and I wanted to get that chapter of that. First of all, everyone talked about Tyreek Hill last season. Everybody, every game, every pregame, every postgame, every time the Chiefs were mentioned, it was in the same breath as Tyreek Hill. And I do think that chapter is now gone. Now he's had a whole year in Miami. You can't going into this season.
And the Chiefs won the Super Bowl without him.
And the Chiefs won the Super Bowl without him. You can't say, well, now what are they going to do without Tyreek Hill? So there's really not a lot left to like pull Tyreek and the Chiefs back together until he inevitably ends his contract with Miami and retires a Chief. But until that point, I just wanted this to happen. But it's not going to happen in Arrowhead. It's going to happen in Germany, which... it's certainly not the same juice there, but it is what it is. The Chiefs have their hands full with the Dolphins. The Dolphins are certainly a capable and dangerous club, especially if Tua's healthy by now. I mean, in week 9, if Tua's still healthy, that means they're probably doing pretty well. That means they've probably won some games and they're probably right there in the thick of the AFC.
Probably 6-3.
Probably something like 6-2.
Something
like that.
6-2. 3 if they're lucky, somewhere in there.
So it's gonna be a tough game. I wish that tough game was in Arrowhead, but it is what it is.
I'm excited for our German fans, our European fans. Hopefully some of them will get a chance to go out to the game. Some of our listeners over in Europe. That'll be fun and exciting. And, it doesn't really bother me that Tyreek Hill isn't getting his Arrowhead reunion. I know he's been out of shape about it, but, you made the choice to go play in Miami. So,
and get a shitload of money and hang out in South Beach. I mean, nobody should feel bad for Tyreek.
Right, exactly. It is what it is. And, Tyreek playing against the Chiefs is one of those things that is going to feel really weird. There was always the possibility that it could have happened last year if things had
Yeah,
played out a little bit differently with the seating, or,
I was
if they
worried about that.
managed to upset the Bills with Skylar Thompson at quarterback, which almost
Which they
happened.
almost
I mean,
did.
right,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
We were so close, but this will be our first opportunity to see Tyreek face off against our Chiefs in a Dolphins uniform. It's going to be weird. I happen to love international games because I am up at the crack of dawn every
Yeah.
weekend. I just love being able to roll out of bed at 7:30 on a Sunday morning and immediately watch football. So I am fired
Well,
up about this. It's going to be great.
but is there a difference for you for that being a random two-team matchup versus a Chiefs game? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I
do you
guess
remember
that's
the
a good
Lions
point.
game in 2015 that the
I
Chiefs won?
I do, and they beat the
They
hell out of
crushed them.
the Lions. But
And
I
it
don't.
wasn't the same for me.
You're right. I don't remember getting the same enjoyment out of it as I would rolling out of bed to watch two random teams
Yes,
that I'm
it's
really only
almost
watching for
more
the
fun.
fantasy implications. That's
Yeah,
fair. That's fair. But I think it'll be a fun game. I am predicting the Chiefs to win. At this point, for me, they will be 9-0.
I am not predicting a Chiefs victory here.
Okay. All right.
However, I am also not predicting a Chiefs loss here. I am channeling Bayern Munich, and the Chiefs are going to finish tied with the Miami Dolphins.
Okay, good. I love it. Week 10 is the bye, which is squarely that's a solid B+ bye week. It's not
Yes, B
it's
plus.
not
Yeah, sure,
it's not
sure.
quite as late as you would like. You maybe want it a couple weeks later, ideally. I think that's what Andy Reid would tell you too. If
Well, especially when you plan on playing later than week 18.
yeah, right,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
Yeah, exactly. 2 years ago, when we had a normal 16 game schedule, week 10 bye would have been a solid A-. Now it's
Yeah,
like a B+, because it's
yeah,
one more week removed from the end of the season.
right.
When you want to really heal guys up and get guys rested up, but it's after the Germany situation. So obviously they don't have to play an international game and come back and play the next week, which some teams have in the past elected to do. Usually doesn't go particularly
Super
well
well.
for them.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to be a little bit tough, now that I'm thinking about it, to go from Denver playing at altitude to then playing internationally. That's going to fuck up some people's bodies. But, the Chiefs have always managed that pretty well with their training staff. So the week 10 bye is followed by, in week 11, the matchup that everybody's excited about, the Super Bowl rematch between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles at Arrowhead on Monday Night Football. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting.
Going to be a lot of fun. This game has as much juice as a NFC opponent basically could have for the Chiefs.
Right.
Obviously being in Arrowhead Stadium, playing the team that you just defeated in the Super Bowl, Andy Reid's Eagles. You've got, I'm sure by this point, because the NFC is a joke, the Eagles will probably be 10-0 by
10-0.
week 11
Easy.
or whatever. And I mean, that they're going to have a really good record because there's no challengers in the NFC. So this is going to be
They do have a really tough schedule this year. Did you see that
but tough
have,
in
by
quotes,
some
maybe.
metrics, the toughest schedule in the NFL?
But how could they?
I know.
The NFC?
Well, I mean,
how even could they?
It's because they're playing, and this is off the top of my head, but they're playing the NFC West, and they're playing the two semi-decent NFC divisions. Don't ask me which ones they are. They're not playing the South.
Sure.
They're not playing the South.
Right.
The
Right.
East is actually, it has the second or third best team in the AFC and the NFC. I mean, the Seahawks, the Niners, and the Cowboys, they're playing those teams 4 times. Those are like the only other good teams in the NFC. So
okay, but still, how does that add up? I mean, I'd take
they're playing the
AFC schedules over that for difficulty.
They're playing the AFC West, and I forget which other AFC division they're playing. But in any case, they are supposedly have a tough schedule, but I'm sure they'll be 9-0, 10-0, depending on if they have their bye. I'm gonna take this as the Chiefs' first L of the year.
Okay. Started
I
off 9-0, just like 2003.
Exactly right. I'm looking forward to our 2003 retrospective here, and I've been looking at it in the Google document this whole time, and I'm thinking, like, am I going to drop an L in week 11 after a 9-0 start? Yeah, I'm going to do it. I think the Eagles are too good of a team to beat them, and not that they're too good for us to beat them 2 times in a row. Obviously, if it were like 4 or 5 times in a row, I'd be like, there's no way I could do. But but I think they'll be motivated. Obviously, it's another Kelsey Bowl. I'm sure Jason will want to get one. Over Trav. We don't know how many more years Jason's gonna play, and this might be the last time he gets to play against Travis. And he wants to at least be able to say, like, at least I went out on top. I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
a regular season
Mm-hmm.
game, but at least it was Monday Night Football.
Yep.
It was obvious from the New Heights podcast that that's
Stung.
still really stings for him. So
Yeah.
moving
Yeah,
on
for
to
sure.
week 12, the Chiefs are
Oh, I've got
traveling.
the Chiefs beating the Eagles, by the way, just in case,
Oh, good.
just
Yeah,
to
I
establish
didn't get
that.
your prediction. Good. So
Yes.
you have the Chiefs at what
It's hard. It's hard.
9-1-1? Is that what you have them at?
10 games through, so
Sure.
8-1-1.
8-1
Yeah.
and 1. The Chiefs in week 12 are traveling to the Las Vegas Raiders. Dub.
Yeah, dub. Dub. Dub
Yeah.
every time the Chiefs play the Raiders. Dub,
Sure.
dub, dub.
Moving on. We don't even, I mean, they're sort of the also rans of the division at this point. They're not relevant. We don't need to talk about them anymore. Week 13 is a perplexing to me
Yeah. Yeah.
primetime matchup on Sunday Night Football against the Fighting Jordan Loves. The Chiefs are traveling to Lambeau Field to take on the Green Bay Packers, who no longer have Aaron Rodgers. So they're going to play Aaron Rodgers' current team and Aaron Rodgers' former team on Sunday Night Football. Those are their only two scheduled Sunday night games of the year, which is a little bit interesting. But I mean, I can't imagine this being anything other than a win for the Chiefs. I get that Lambeau's a tough place to play. We're into week 13, so I mean, we're into deep into November at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's Sunday night, which obviously is a night game in Green Bay, Wisconsin in November. Certainly could be ugly from a weather standpoint, but like I just don't think the Packers are very good. And maybe Jordan Love will make me eat those words, but like, okay, so be it. If I'm wrong, I'll take the L on that, but I think the Chiefs come away with the win.
These teams and these quarterbacks have already faced off in prime time before.
That's right.
And the Chiefs couldn't do anything on offense, and yet they still won the game.
Right.
I think it was 10-3 or
yeah,
I mean, it was very, very, very low scoring. One of the lowest scoring games in Patrick Mahomes' career, maybe the lowest scoring combined game in his career. It just doesn't really matter to me what this, I mean, at the end of the day, if this were Rodgers,
13-7, by the way,
I probably would 13-7. Yeah, absolute, just a old 1930s football game there. If this were Rodgers, I probably would be pretty comfortable predicting a loss. I think that that's a tough. All the other things you mentioned, all the factors go against the Chiefs there, except they just aren't any good. The Packers are. Right. So I am predicting the Chiefs to win. I don't know what that win's going to look like or really much about how the Chiefs are going to pull it off, but I do think that the Packers don't have the horses to hang with the Chiefs.
All right, moving right along. Week 15, a game that would have had, week 14. I was skipping ahead one. And week 14 does actually have some juice. I was about to say week 15 doesn't have any juice. Spoiler alert, the Chiefs are playing the Patriots. We'll talk about that in a second.
Right.
But week 14, they are playing the Buffalo Bills. They're playing the Buffalo Bills at Arrowhead, which I'm sure just annoys the bejesus out of Bills fans who are like, why do we have to go to Arrowhead every year? It's because they don't understand how the NFL schedule works, and it's a rotating, 2 years on, 2 years off. Plus, if you finish, head to head in your division, same pairing, it can line up where
there's a different rotation with the divisional placement,
with the divisional
matchups than there is for the divisional matchups, which is, when the Chiefs play the AFC East, it's a different rotation for home and away than when they play the first place team from the other divisions. Correct. So, but that bit the Chiefs when we had to go to New England like 6 or 7 times in a row or whatever that was. So, I mean, it's definitely, I get their frustration, but like learn football, Buffalo.
Yeah, seriously. This will be an interesting one because we're going to probably have a pretty good idea by week 14 whether Buffalo is still good and still at the top of the pack, or if, as I think is a pretty legitimate possibility, their window is passed and their ship has sailed into the night, and they're going to have to wait another 30 years of wandering through the wilderness before they get back to lose 4 straight Super Bowls. Right? Like, I just, it'll be interesting to see what kind of team they are by week 14. I don't have any sense of what that's going to look like. They obviously were not a good team at the end of the year. They barely beat the Skylar Thompsons in the first round of the playoffs, and then they got absolutely walked by the Bengals in their own house, in a snow game with DeMar Hamlin in attendance, and they just got completely demolished. They were totally uncompetitive. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about this game. So I'm just going to stick with my gut default reaction, which is a win.
And that's a pretty good gut default reaction.
Sure, it is.
I think that their roster is too top heavy. I think that they built a team to win the 2020 and 2021 Super Bowls. That's what they did.
specifically to beat us on the way there. And,
Yes, correct. And didn't work out that way for them.
Didn't work out.
But
It
that
did
was their
not.
plan. And now they're dealing with the aftermath of that plan. And that's that Josh Allen has shown to be a little bit too inconsistent to be the perennial MVP, put a team on his back type of guy that Buffalo fans want him to be, which is understandable that they want that from him. But it's not Josh Allen. That's not who he is. He's a very gifted, still a top 3-4 quarterback in the NFL. He's still very talented, but like he's not him. He's just not. And this is going to be an opportunity for the 13 games into the year, 12 games into the year. The Bills are going to either be, 10-2 or something like that and pretty ultra competitive, or what's going to happen to them is what you predicted. I think so too. I think they're going to be like a 7-6 team at this point. They're just going to be there. They're just going to be floundering around, and the Chiefs are going to take care of business like they always do against the Bills, and especially late in the year.
Chiefs then follow that up with another AFC East matchup, which I already teased. They're going to the Patriots, and they're playing on Monday Night Football. And I wish this game had any juice for me at all, but it just doesn't. I just don't care. I just don't care about the Patriots. I just like it's. I don't want to go through the entire AFC and like match up, like power rank the teams in the AFC. But the Patriots have got to be like 10th out of 16, like
that might be generous,
right? Exactly. Like it's definitely, they're not going to be a playoff team. They're not going to be a good team. And I would be stunned if the Chiefs didn't walk away with a win in this game. It's on Monday Night Football. I mean, going to Foxborough and facing Bill Belichick, I guess, when it happens, I'll enjoy watching it. All the times that Mahomes has played against Belichick, it's been fun. But like, I mean, Chiefs are going to win this game.
Yeah, it's not really about, I mean, it's nothing really makes sense for the Patriots anymore to get excited about. They just don't have it. They don't have the X factor. They don't have the juice. Going into Foxborough, I'm sure there will be, they will wax poetic about the epic Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes games that existed when the Patriots mattered, but they don't matter anymore. And they don't matter because they're not good. And when they're not good, the Chiefs beat them. And that's what's going to happen here. Chiefs are going to take care of business in Foxborough on primetime once again. And both of us have them, sitting pretty at either one loss or 1 loss and 1 tie through 15 weeks, 14 games.
Las Vegas Raiders, week 16, Christmas Day. And it's just another present under the tree.
Christmas dub.
Christmas Day, Christmas dub. We don't need to talk about the Raiders. Week 17, New Year's Eve. Now this one's got some juice, and I wish that this had been the week 1 matchup, but it's not. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. They again have to travel. They have to travel to Arrowhead. We had to play at Cincinnati a couple of times. This will be their third trip to Burrowhead Stadium in the last 2 seasons, and. Yep. This is where we ended their lives in a game where you and I were in attendance just a few short months ago, and it felt amazing. And, I wish they could have been there in week 1 to watch us get our Super Bowl rings and hang our banner and get a taste of what that feels like. But at least they'll get to see the banner flying above the stadium that they helped us to achieve by losing to us in the AFC Championship game. I just hope that both the teams have something to play for. It's week 17, with the single bye. I don't think we've had any team, the Eagles last year, basically could have clinched like with 4 weeks
in
ago.
Week 14.
And then Jalen Hurts got hurt, and they kind of were screwing around a little bit at the end of the year, and they had to play, through week 17. But like, other than them playing in an ultra non-competitive conference, the AFC bye has really come down to the wire ever since they shut it down to 1 bye week. And so I think this will be a game where both teams will have something to play for. And boy, I really hope the Chiefs win. I can't predict a victory confidently. I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to pick them. But I really hope that the Chiefs win, because a win gets us 1 step closer to 500 against Joe Burrow. And once we get out from under the 1-3 situation and once we get back to 3-3, and then we're on to 4-3. There's literally no talking that Bengals fans can do. The only
No.
thing that they have on us is the fact that Joe Burrow happens to be 3-1 against Patrick Mahomes. Okay,
Yep.
and
Yep.
through no efforts of his own. To be
No.
clear, it's
Nope.
all just him getting put on his defense's back and being carried to win after win against the Chiefs. I will pick the Chiefs to win this game and go to 15-1.
It's hard to win in the NFL when you don't have the better quarterback. That's been a fortunate sign for the Chiefs for a long time, since Mahomes walked in the building.
Right.
That when you have the better quarterback, typically nothing else tends to matter. Every now and then it does. You got weird games going on, but for the most part, these guys match up with each other. And if you've got the dude on your end, you're going to get the job done. And I just unfortunately don't feel that Blaine Gabbert and the Chiefs are going to have it this game. I just think that they're not really going to be able to take out Joe Burrow, who's fighting for a wild card spot. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I'm going to predict Blaine Gabbert and the Chiefs drop this game on New Year's Eve to the Bengals.
That leaves us with one final game, Week 18 at the Los Angeles Chargers. And I got to agree with you. I don't think Blaine Gabbert is taking out Justin Herbert. So I had the Chiefs losing this game and dropping to a franchise best 15-2 season. This schedule, let me get your prediction, and then we can kind of just give our little spin on this whole thing.
I think the Chargers are going to also be playing their backups.
Okay.
And so I think that the Chiefs backups take care of business in LA when the Chargers don't matter, and they're getting ready for a draft pick there. So I'm going to take the Chiefs.
So you have the Chargers missing the playoffs, and that's why
I do. And I have the Chiefs to go 14-2-1.
That's fun. 14-2-1. That would be a fun one. This schedule, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the afterglow of winning our second Super Bowl in 4 years, but this schedule doesn't feel as intimidating to me as the last 2 or 3 seasons have. Certainly not as much as last season's schedule did. And then, of course, the Chiefs without Tyreek Hill came in and won the Super Bowl. So maybe that's part of it. But aside from the gripes about when we're playing certain teams and who we're playing in week 1, thanks, Roger.
Right.
I like the way this matches up. I mean, there's no stretches in here that are remotely as difficult as the early season stretch the Chiefs went through last year, where they played just an absolute murderer's row of teams to kick off the 2022 season. I just don't see a stretch like that on the schedule. I mean, it was Cardinals, which whatever, but Chargers, Colts, Bucks, Raiders, Bills, Niners, Titans. Of course, in hindsight, maybe that doesn't look, but it looked really scary before the start of last year. And
here's why it looked really scary, is because the Chiefs were not, without a doubt, the best team in football into last year. They weren't. There was unknowns. You had the Tyreek Hill stuff. The Chiefs had won the one Super Bowl, but then lost the AFC Championship game, lost the Super Bowl. So they weren't the Chiefs that we know them to be right now, which is by far the best team in football. There's just no getting around it. I'm sorry. You can talk about the rosters. You can talk about whatever you want, but head coach, quarterback, this team is going to match up with everyone favorably. And we know that now. And so when we look at this schedule, if you were an average NFL team, even if you were a playoff NFL team and you had this schedule and it didn't even include the Chiefs, you'd be like, damn, we got a gauntlet here. I mean, these teams are tough, but they're not as tough as the Chiefs. They're just not. There's something different when you're the man, when you're the dogs, when you have the MVP, when you won the Super Bowl, when you go into this schedule. All of these teams circle the Chiefs on their schedule. All of them say, well, if we can just maybe steal one from Kansas City, then we'll be in good shape this year. We are their team, but we don't have that team for us. We don't have that team where we go, well, shit. Cincinnati beat them, Bills falling apart, all these guys, all these teams that should be the mountain for the Chiefs to climb. We've climbed it. They've climbed those mountains. So I just think that it doesn't really, I don't know how you could craft a schedule where I would look at it and be like, man, this is tough, because the top 3, 4, 5 next best teams after the Chiefs, who cares? Beat them.
All right. Well, let's turn back the page to 2003. We have labeled this 2003 retrospective, and you put Blast from the Past, which
Yeah.
is different from what you previously put in the document, which was
Yeah.
Ask Blast from the Past.
I
But
wasn't sure.
either way, we're still workshopping what this
It's
is going
because
to be
the
like.
Chiefs didn't really get their asses blasted in
No,
2003. I was kind of thinking like that was
sure.
fun because it's very sunny type, but
Right.
whatever. Okay, so we're just going to get into it. We're going to talk about the 2003 Chiefs. We're going to talk
Yes.
about week
Let's do it.
one. We're going to talk about going into this season, which we previewed this last week as far as their what they looked like in 2002, a 500 team, never a game above or below 500 all year. They added some pieces. Now they're coming in this year with coming off of the number 1 offense in the NFL, the number 32 defense. Heard that story before. So the first game on the schedule is the San Diego Superchargers. Now, the 2003 Chargers were quarterbacked by second-year quarterback Drew Brees after he was 8-8 in 2002, and so
which, by the way, tied
was
with
the worst record in the AFC West,
last place in the division. That's right. They
yep.
tied at 8-8, which is wild.
But this isn't Drew Brees. This isn't Hall of Fame quarterback Drew Brees.
No.
This is 23-year-old Drew Brees, who in 2002, in his first year, threw 17 touchdowns to 16 interceptions. He barely passed for 3,000 yards in the full season. He had a 76.9 rating in 2002. And I mean, I get it. 20 years ago, this ain't your dad's NFL or whatever. I mean, these guys were not quite what they are today at the quarterback position, but certainly given Drew Brees' future in the league, I expected, going back and remembering him early on, for him to just have a little bit more juice to his box scores. But he gets there, just not quite at this point in the season. So I'm just going to take you through kind of how this game went. This was at Arrowhead. This was a 1 p.m. start on Sunday. There were 78,000 fans in attendance, as you would expect for the first game of the year. And the Chiefs were not worried, but Chiefs fans were kind of wondering if Priest Holmes was going to be the guy before his injury in 2002, where he was the best rusher in football, or how much his injury to end the year was going to impact his ability.
Sure.
And let me just say that to start off the game, the Chiefs right away wanted to test him. And so a couple passes to Kennison, but then Priest Holmes takes a pass for 16 yards. And then Priest Holmes goes left end for a 24-yard touchdown on the sixth play of the drive. And the blocking was, of course, fantastic because the line did their stuff. Willie Roaf was leading the way on that one. And the Chiefs kicked the extra point, and you're thinking, okay, the offense did its job. The offense, the number 1 offense from last year, comes right down the field, kicks San Diego's ass, puts the points on the board. But the real test for the 2003 Chiefs is, of course, going to be, what can that defense do?
Sure, 30-second.
Yeah, 30-second defense. So, I mean, literally, we've talked about this in recent iterations, Bob Sutton Chiefs, that, like, if you can just get us with our awesome offense, like, bottom 10 instead of bottom 1, like, we're going to have a good shot, right? You don't need to be the 85 Bears in order to give a good offense a shot. You just need to not be the worst.
I'll say my gateway to this game, since this is one of the ones that we don't have a complete full replay for, full disclosure, we were not able to rewatch this entire game, but I was able to find some kick-ass highlights on YouTube with Chris Berman back in his slightly less irritating days, and the great Tom Jackson. And Chris Berman, in fact, made that exact observation as Tom was breaking down some of the highlights of the Chiefs defense, which I'm sure we'll get into. But, hey, if the Chiefs can just be, middle of the pack in defense, they could really do something this year, right? Exactly. I mean, that's what I was surprised by it, too. I was like, that's not an amazing point. But
I meant that was a good Berman impersonation.
That's what I thought
that was a good Berman.
I thought you meant that his point was a good one, but
which
it was Berman. I mean, it's a low bar, but he cleared it in that sense.
So the Chiefs defense is up to the task now. So after a couple plays, a 5-yard and a 6-yarder for a first down, the Chargers go incomplete pass, knocked down by Eric Warfield, and then big free agent acquisition from the Packers, Vonnie Holiday makes his first impact play with the Chiefs on their first drive, 4th defensive play of the season, and sacks Drew Brees for a 9-yard loss. And everyone in Arrowhead is going apeshit because that's the guy. If we can just do that every now and then, get some pressure, have some fun, we're going to be all right. And then, of course, the Chargers punt back. They go back and forth. And then the Chiefs after a Chiefs punt and a Chiefs pick by Greg Wesley. So again, 2 Chargers possessions, and they get a sack and a punt on the first one, and then a Greg Wesley interception when the Chargers had driven into the Chiefs territory. And Chiefs are off and running, baby. Priest Holmes touchdown, winning the Super Bowl here.
Definitely.
And then
100%.
Another Chiefs touchdown, and then a Morton Anderson field goal with 5 minutes left in the second, and none of these Chargers possessions are ending in points. And the Chargers have one final shot. They end up punting from the Kansas City 44-yard line for a touchback, which 2003 football was real crude. It was 4th and 5 from the 44. And they just didn't have the stones. So anyways, so the Chiefs take a 24-0 lead into the locker room on opening day. AFC West opponent in the building, rabid crowd. I mean, just juice wise, if you were to script a good start for this season, it's Priest Holmes being healthy, offense continuing to do what they did last year, which is put up points, and the defense not only not being bad, they're pitching a shutout with a turnover and sacks. I mean, they are doing their job. It was a sight to behold in that first half.
Yeah, and listen, this is this is not Hall of Famer Drew Brees, but the Chargers did have LaDainian Tomlinson, who you may have heard was an extremely good player. I mean, literally the year before, almost 1,700 yards rushing and another 489 yards receiving. I mean, he had 2,100 yards from scrimmage.
He was a monster.
15 touchdowns the year before that. And he's 24 years old. I mean, he was in his prime. He would go for 2370 in this season, playing against the Chiefs in week 1.
He was so good.
And they shut him down. They shut him down in the first half. They shut him down in the second half. He did nothing in this game. 13 rushes for 34 yards, 5 receptions for 27 yards, no scores. I mean,
he was too scared.
If I didn't know how this season ended and I watched this game, I would say the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. How could you think anything else watching this game, how it started? And we should just briefly kind of, jot through the second half. It's not like this got really any closer. The Chargers get a couple of late touchdowns. They score once in the third, once in the fourth, but the Chiefs end up winning this game in a laugher. I mean, it's 27-14. It's never close. And, we obviously talked about Vonnie Holiday, 3 sacks in this game.
3 first half sacks.
I mean, absolute monster. The Chiefs end up, getting those 3 sacks in the game. They get 5-7 tackles for loss in this game. I mean, they're they're in the backfield. They're penetrating. They're tackling well. They're getting turnovers.
Full penetration.
A full penetration. I mean, this was a dominant performance by our 2003 Kansas City Chiefs. I see big things for this team.
I do as well. They had 2 turnovers on defense, which was big for them to, the other thing about when you have a bend but don't break defense is that the turnovers are so important. Because you're going to give up yards. You don't have the horses to really, shut guys down all the time. But if you can just get some turnovers, some picks, some stuff like that, some lucky stuff, then you're going to be okay. And the Chiefs certainly showed that. So they march out of week 1 in great shape. They dominated. They looked good on against a divisional opponent that was as good as them record-wise last year. So the matchup should have been closer. Like it should have been a division
opponent.
Exactly. The Chargers obviously knew the Chiefs very well. The Chargers were coached by Marty Schottenheimer, which also means that they should have it should have meant a lot to them to come into Arrowhead week 1 and beat Marty's old team and beat the division rivals and all that stuff. So the Chiefs absolutely take care of business. I cannot wait to continue to break down 2003 with everybody throughout the rest of the offseason. There was some really fun. I can't wait till the standings materialize a little bit more. The opening day this year, Buffalo beats New England 31-0. And in 2003, obviously, spoiler alert, that's the second. They were defending in 01. Tampa, Oakland went to the Super Bowl in 2002. So that's the other, when the Chiefs match up with the Raiders twice, they're going to be matching up with the Super Bowl Super Bowl
year was
losers.
This?
Exactly.
This is 20 years ago?
It was 20 years ago, and the world was completely different.
Different.
Cannot wait to continue down this road.
We got to hand out some awards because we know you guys love our awards segment. We love our awards segment. And we kind of had the discussion before the show. Should we? Shouldn't we? We're going to give out one total for each of these. So we're going to have a 5-star man. Those are obviously the players that scream with their play, I'm a 5-star man. You got your wild cards.
Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
They're capable of anything. And of course, the infamous trash man.
I'm the trash man. I come out, I throw trash all over the ring, and then I start eating garbage.
Who is a player that who is through his play is eating garbage on the field. So I'll kick us off. I'm going to pick the 5-star man for this game. I'm going to pick Vonnie Holiday. I mean,
how could you not?
I honestly, I'm trying not to spoiler. I'm trying not to spoiler the season for myself. I know some spoilers about Vonnie Holiday, and for those of you who don't look it up. It's going to be a fun little journey that we're going to go on with Vonnie. I was not familiar with Vonnie Holiday's game, to quote Shaquille O'Neal, and I apologize to him because I was not familiar with this game, and he came out and had 3 sacks in week 1. He's a 5-star man.
We'll keep a Vonnie Holiday sack counter going for the 2003 season.
I can't wait.
You guys can see.
I mean, 3 sacks in week 1.
3 sacks in week 1. He's on his way.
He's going to beat the record. I mean, I know he didn't beat the record, but he's got to be up there. So
the pace alone there. The pace alone.
3 sacks in week 1.
I'm going to go with the wild card. And this is a guy that probably is not going to get the wild card any other time at this point in the 2003 season. But going into week 1, the Chiefs just didn't, as I said early on in this game, didn't know what they had with Priest Holmes. You had an undrafted free agent that they picked up from Baltimore that set the world on fire in 2001 and 2002, was absolutely the king of the NFL, king of fantasy, and then gets hurt at the end of 2002, and you just wonder when he's going to turn back into a pumpkin, or at least I did as a kid. I was just like, I loved Priest. I thought he was amazing, but like at some point, that pedigree and all that stuff and the injury, I just was worried about it. So I'm giving Priest Holmes the wild card, not because of his performance. Obviously, 85 yards rushing, 98 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Coming off that injury, he was capable of anything. And this was one of his, the breakouts early on that made me, he's not going to be a wild card from here on out, but he certainly was in this game.
That leaves us with a trash man, and it's going to be a player that even you newer fans should recognize. Atlanta Falcons great Tony Gonzalez.
Sure.
He really disappointed in this game. 2 catches for 18 yards. That is some garbage play. Now I'm excited. Listen, he is a Falcons great. They did make his career, but listen, we can bury the hatchet with Tony Gonzalez. I'm excited to relive kind of the glory days of Tony Gonzalez's career, because
he was a monster in 03.
Back in the day, and we discussed this last week, 2004 is really the first Chiefs season that I was really locked in on and kind of remember. And so this is, and I remember as a Chiefs fan, in my late teens, kind of coming up with the team in the early 2000s, Dick Vermeil and then Herm Edwards. Tony Gonzalez was it. He was him. And, his legacy as a Chief has taken a little bit of a hit. So I'm excited to relive the glory days, but not this year, not this week. We're going to lean into, the Tony hating, and he's going to get the trash man. He has to. I mean, 2 catches for 18 yards is objectively bad.
Especially for your MVP guy.
Sure.
I mean, he's the guy that the offense should have been going through.
Right.
So that'd be like if Kelsey has a game with 2 catches for 18 yards, he's getting our trash man. Like that's just that's the rules. That's how it goes.
He's judged by a different standard, and this is a trash man worthy performance by the Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez. Let's close this out with a couple of mailbag questions. We've got one here from Tim Squires 11. I'm not sure if Tim has written us before, but Tim Squires 11 writes, any chance we could get a Rashee Rice, Anquan Bolton relative athletic score and skill set comparison? I feel like it could be insightful, but I could definitely be wrong. So this is fascinating. And I'm glad that you brought this up, Tim, because this ended up being a really fruitful and interesting comparison. Let's start with the size. So Anquan Bolton, 6 foot and 6 foot, and then what is that? 0.05. How exactly does that work?
That's
the relative
that's
athletic
6
score?
foot and a half an inch.
Okay, 6 foot and half an inch.
If it was a 1 inch, it'd
I got
be
it right.
6.0.
6010. Yep, that makes sense.
No, actually, I think that second one is the inch, and then the next 2 are the percentage of the next. He's just a hair over 6 foot.
He's a hair over 6 foot, but the point is, he's the exact same height as Rashee Rice.
Yeah,
Rashee Rice and Anquan Bolton are the exact same height. And in terms of weight, this is Anquan Bolden's best score in his relative athletic score. I don't want to spoil his grade until the end because that won't make it that will make it less fun. But this is Anquan Bolden's elite trait in terms of how he tested. He was chunk, 216 in that 6 foot frame, right? Like he's a bulky dude. He's got a lot of heft to him. That boy dense. And Rashee Rice also dense, also good. 7.09 percentile, 70th percentile relative athletic score for size. His weight was a 204. But his height, and it's interesting too to see this change because wide receivers, I guess, have gotten taller. At the same time, when Anquan came out in 2003, he's a 63rd percentile height. Rashee Rice coming out this year was 58th percentile at the exact same height. So size pretty comparable. Anquan had 12 pounds on him coming out, but not an incredible difference there. And hand size, we don't have hand size for Anquan Bolden. I actually would be interested to know that. We could maybe look that up. But in any case,
Sure.
Good size comparable here. Composite explosion grade, Anquan's was okay. Rashee Rice's is elite. Elite score, 99th percentile on the broad jump, 92nd percentile, or excuse me, in the vertical, 92nd percentile on the broad. Anquan Bolden was a 53rd percentile vertical jumper and a 37th percentile broad jumper. So not great, not incredible. The
That's
composite, yeah, I know, me too.
How bad it was. I mean, I didn't expect it to be
exactly right.
Otherworldly, but yeah.
So the composite speed score for Rashee Rice is great. We talked about it a couple weeks ago when we broke this down, but 72nd percentile in the 40, 93rd percentile in the 20-yard split, and 97th percentile in the 10-yard split. So as you get close to the line of scrimmage, just very explosive. And that actually is also approximately how Anquan Bolden's grades broke down. However, his 10-yard split, which was his best attribute, was 50th percentile. His 20-yard split was 12th percentile, and his 40-yard was 17th and a half percentile. So not surprisingly, that comes out to a composite speed score of 4. And the composite agility grade for Rashee Rice is good, 66th percentile in the shuttle and 57th percentile in the 3-cone. Anquan Bolden, 26th percentile in both. So what it comes out to for Rashee Rice,
bad scores.
No, for Rashee Rice, a 95th percentile relative athletic score, and for Anquan Bolden, a 33rd percent relative athletic score. Now, you might think that would mean that this is not a good comparison and they're not really comparable players. But I will say, obviously, testing it's illustrative to a point. But, this was 20 years ago when Anquan came out. And, the combine isn't what it is now. The draft isn't even what it is now in terms of how it's covered and how it's scouted and how it, every little minute detail is kind of broken down. So when you turn over to the scouting report, that's where it starts to get kind of interesting. And for those of you not familiar with Anquan Bolden's game, he was very much a contested catch receiver. Now, I think the point that I wanted to make here was some guys don't test well, and it doesn't mean that they're bad players. And probably literally one of the worst testers of all time is Orlando Brown Jr. And say what you want about Orlando Brown Jr., but he's not the worst player ever.
No.
He tested like the worst tackle ever he literally was like a 1 percentile athlete. He was awful. Okay. He tested horribly at everything. And Anquan Bolden, 33rd percentile, is not great. That ranked 392nd out of 589 wide receivers from 1987 to 2003. Okay.
Not good.
It's not good. It's not good. It's not 95th percentile like Rashee Rice. But Anquan Bolden, I was kind of going through some scouting reports to make sure that my memories of Anquan Bolden were correct. And the thing about Anquan Bolden was he had amazing body control, and he was so good at the catch point. And despite having a 36th percentile relative athletic score, a 33rd percentile relative athletic score, he caught 101 passes as a rookie for 1,377 yards. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
he was a monster.
He's bonkers. I mean, the guy had one of the best rookie wide receiver seasons ever of all time. I mean, even today, when rookie receivers are making a bigger and bigger impact earlier in their careers, that would be a bonkers season. I mean, that would win you offensive rookie of the year, almost certainly.
Yep.
Even in 2023. And so when you kind of look back at the film, and I watched a little bit of Bolden's tape, I was watching highlights on him. One of the observations that you can make about him, especially later in his career, but even when he came out, I mean, the guy wasn't that fast. He just was very physical at the catch point and just had great body control. And Rashee Rice has all those same traits. And I will say this. What makes me a little bit nervous about it is that Rashee Rice, that kind of wide receiver, that type of player, they don't necessarily succeed that often. But when they do, they can be great players in the NFL. Anquan Bolden had a Hall of Fame career. I don't know if he's actually going to end up in the Hall of Fame, but he had a Hall of Fame career.
He did.
The guy that Rashee Rice says that he models his game on is a guy who has a very similar profile to both of these guys, and it's DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins is having a Hall of Fame career. DeAndre Hopkins doesn't create a ton of separation, and he's not huge. I mean, neither of these guys are huge. DeAndre Hopkins is right around the same height, and he's, I'm sure, very similar in weight. But he plays so much bigger than he is. He just plays so much taller. He's so good at the catch point. He's so good at contested catches. And, I think the point that you made a couple weeks ago when we were breaking down the draft is this is just not a player that the Chiefs have had in recent memory. And so
certainly not the 2023 Chiefs. I mean, yeah,
exactly. So it's going to be really interesting. I think it's a fascinating comp because I think when people are making comparisons to the draft, you want to, I think a lot of people in the draft industry want to lean into these recent comps. Like I have to pick kind of a player who's currently in the league, but I really like this comparison. Like I do see a lot of similarities in their game. That doesn't mean that Rashee Rice is going to have a 1,400-yard season as a rookie. He probably won't. Although if he does, wheels up. We are definitely not losing any games if that happens. But it's a really fascinating comparison. And if you just looked at their relative athletic scores and you just looked at the number at the end of the tape and you didn't look at the film and you didn't look at the size and you didn't look at what Anquan Bolden was actually able to do in the league aside from his testing numbers, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. But I think when you dig deeper, it's one that sticks. I think it's a good comp.
I agree. It's a really good comp. Just to put a bow on Bolden's place in history, there have been a total. Let me have you guess. How many wide receivers have had a rookie season since the merger of over 1,300 yards? He had 1,377. Is your guess?
Since the merger. So that's all the way back to 1970.
Yeah.
Over 1,300 yards as a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, it can't have been that many. I'm going to guess 10 ever since the merger.
5. It's 5.
Oh my God.
And he ranks third ever.
Sheesh. So who else is on the, hold on, let's see if I can name anybody else.
Sure. They're recent. They're both active.
Odell
was, he is third. Odell is fifth.
Okay.
Odell had 1305.
I was going to say Odell did it, and he missed 4 games. He was insane as a rookie.
Yeah, he did. He had 12 games played and 1,300 yards.
He did it in 12 games. Yeah, he had a hamstring injury.
The two guys above Bolden are active. The guy below Bolden is not active.
Don't think I'm going to get the other guys, but I was going to guess Odell. So why don't you just tell me who the other guys are?
So number 1 all time with 1,455 yards as a rookie is Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase's rookie year, he was ridiculous, and obviously Burrow fed him constantly. And then with 1,400 yards in his rookie year, Justin Jefferson said, "I am him." He was absolutely on the scene. And then, of course, number 4, greatest wide receiver in my book of all time, Randy Moss, had 1,313 yards in 1998. When in doubt, just guess Randy Moss.
Sure. Randy Moss or, Jerry Rice, but I was pretty sure Jerry hadn't done it. Randy Moss, Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham, and Anquan Bolden and Rashee Rice. So, just to put one more bow on it, while you were talking, I did take the opportunity to look up DeAndre Hopkins's relative athletic score. He's 6'1", so he's slightly taller. He's 214. So we got to tack on a little bit of mass for Rashee.
A little bit.
To get him truly into their comp. But DeAndre Hopkins' relative athletic score overall, 49th percentile. Not a strong athlete. I mean, his speed, just like Anquan Bolden's, his speed grade is poor. He ran a 48th percentile 40, a 36 percentile 20-yard split, a 36 percentile 10-yard split. So, and he also had a poor agility grade. So, Rashee Rice.
What did he do well?
He's big.
Yeah.
He had good size. He was 87 percentile in weight. That was his only elite trait. And that is also Anquan Bolden's only elite trait, who's 96 percentile. So we got to get Rashee to chonk up. I mean, even if he takes a little bit of a hit in the speed and agility numbers,
right?
I mean, if Anquan Bolden and DeAndre Hopkins and literally nobody else, if we just consider their athletic scores, what we take away from that is that he just needs to get bigger. He needs to get physically larger.
Get him some Joes.
Yeah, exactly. We just need him to tack on some mass, and the Chiefs will be harvesting wins. It's always sunny in Chiefs Kingdom.